So you can walk right into the hive. There's a door here. So the bees come in and you can do all of your work inside of the hive. So during winter time, the bees stay warm. You don't have to go out in the middle of a field or anything and work out in the cold. You can go inside where it's nice and warm. And Blas here is demonstrating. This hive is actually, it's not inside of anything, but you can put it inside of a truck or a van and you can transport that hive. So, and this lid just opens up and closes back on it just like it would be on the inside of the hive. So he's demonstrating how to pull the hives out. In our American style, we pull the hives, or we pull the frames out. And here they're all vertical, so you can just slide them right out, put them on your stand, and look through your hives. That way you don't have to lift any heavy boxes. If you get a big box like this, they can be about 50 pounds if they're full of honey, so you don't have to do any heavy lifting.
So if you guys aren't familiar with beekeeping, the idea is each one of those colors is a separate one of these boxes and is a different colony of bees. So there'd be a queen in each one of those colors. So you know when you drive out into the country here, you see like all the smooth honey hives and there's all those white ones and they're stacked together. It's that same concept, but he's put them all into one shed instead of all dotted around.
All right, so we visited the city of Bled. That's where we had our first beekeeping experience, and it's located on Bled Lake. And you can see there how clear the water is. There's real pristine, real small village around it. There's an island out in the lake that you can row boats out to and visit that island and tour that. You can also either walk around the entire lake or take a bike around. Whitney and I chose to bike around the path. And that is Whitney taking a break from our biking and dipping her feet in the nice blue water. One of the main attractions in Bled is the castle, or the Bled Castle, and it overlooks Lake Bled, and there you can get a better idea of the path that goes all the way around the lake, and then the blue, pristine water there. You can look right over there, down onto the lake on the other side of the castle, which we got a tour. And the castle dates back to 1011. After that, we took a beekeeping tour in Radovica, and this had a good history of beekeeping throughout the years in Slovenia. These are what original beehives look like, these small boxes, and they have the frames inside of those. And this was a horse-drawn carriage, and that's how they transported all their honey, by horse. So we took a few stops along the way that didn't have to do with bees. We got to visit a castle, and we got to see another good view of those are the Slovenian Alps. Okay, after that we visited, this is Anton Janss's bee house. This is not Anton, but he was back at about the 70s, yeah, the 1700s. World Bee Day is on May 20th, and it's specifically on that day because that is Anton's birthday, because he's known as one of the greatest beekeepers and a pioneer in apiculture, which Whitney talked about, and I'll talk about a little bit later on. So that afternoon, we went to go visit beekeeper Tony, and he lives in another beautiful area, all pristine. Everything is well manicured and kept. That is an example of one of his beehives, and you can see he has a mural on each of the frames. And that was our first experience with apitherapy. So you take a mask, there's a tube that runs into a beehive, and the idea is to breathe in the aroma and the fumes of the bees, and it's supposed to help with respiratory. So after that, we got to taste some of Tony's honey. His company is called Bee Tony. You can see it up here. That's his company there. He had some alcohol. I don't think he had any meat.
Don't open these up yet, but you can pass them around.
That's Bee Tony's honey.
That's what we're going to eat today.
Yep. Then they served us a great meal. You can see, as we go through, you can see all the food is very fresh. Nothing's processed. Very healthy. A lot of it's grown right there. The vegetables and everything in their own gardens. Yeah, we tasted several different kinds of alcohol. One variety is called mead, which
So
we
mead
made
is,
mead ourselves.
yeah, mead's like wine. It's a fermented product. This was hard alcohol that he's serving here, but a lot of people had alcohol, some version of alcohol for sale. So there was a lot of drinking and there was a lot of charcuterie on this trip. Hence the reason the kids stayed home.
Okay, our next up is Prasava, and this was an actual apothecary class ran by Nika, who's there in the center with the blue shirt. And one of the things she said, if you're a beekeeper, you'll always have a medicine cabinet at your fingertips. She talked about all the different things you can do with honey, propolis, and pollen. And we'll talk about propolis and pollen a little bit later on and let you know what that is. We have a short video. This is venom therapy, and I'll show you that.
And if any of you are avid Amazing Race watchers, Nika was in the year that they went to Slovenia.
Okay, so the idea behind venom therapy is they take a bee and they extract the stinger from it, and they can do that without killing the bee. And then they take the stinger and they poke it around that. I had a sore wrist, so they poke it around the area that's sore, and it's supposed to help with the inflammation and the pain, and it's also used for arthritis.
Did it help?
It worked. I don't know if you have to do it multiple times in order for it to help, but it's a very interesting process. So that is her extracting the stinger.
Did that hurt, just like a bee sting?
Just, yeah, it wasn't like a full bee sting. It's just kind of a prick and, yeah, it didn't, yeah, more itchy than anything.
But the bee doesn't die?
If you're careful,
You can extract it without killing the bee.
yeah.
Sometimes it does kill it, but there is a way to do it without killing the bee. Okay, then off to Prasava village after we met with Nika, and this is Beekeeper Rogel, and this is probably one of the most interesting beekeeping places that we visited. He had several different hives. This one is mounted on the top of a tree stump that you open up and you look at the hives. This one is a door that came down, and it's just a glass, and you can look inside and see how the bees are working. That was an example that he came up with how to feed his bees. That would be sugar water up there. And then down on the bottom right-hand side is his actual beehive, and again, you can see he has a mural on it, painted just for himself. And this was the most interesting beehive that we visited. You can see he has it stacked up 4 high. So right behind him, there's a different colored tile, and he's owns an auto mechanic shop. And when he steps on those tiles, he has a hydraulic lever that raises them up, and he can move up and down to check the hives. So he can work on the high hives without getting out his ladder or worrying about falling out.
So cool.
Okay, then we continued our tour. We went to an actual apicenter, which was new there. You could get a honey massage, which Whitney did. You can go into a honey sauna, which we both did, or a salt therapy, and there's more apitherapy inhalation that we did. Okay, and I thought this was one of my favorite parts of the trip. We visited a honeybee hostel. Everything was in the shape of a honeycomb. So all of the rooms over on the right-hand side, that's what a room looked like inside. And that's the hallways shaped inside in the honeycomb. So our next stop was at the Olime Monastery, and you can see in the background it's very ornate and pristine. Outside, all well manicured. They had several gardens and several grounds, and the monks were also beekeepers. So that was one of their beehives. Again, a lot of colors. And then down on the right-hand side, inside the monastery, they had their own little drug shop, apothecary. They had all kinds of elixirs. You could get anything you wanted for any kind of ailment that you could think of. And we bought a few things.
Yeah, you'd walk up and you'd hear people saying, diabetes, and he'd pull a sack of tea off the shelf and sell you that. And there were a lot of salves for when you have really itchy skin, eczema, yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of the end of our beekeeping. We didn't do any more bee activities, so we had some free time. This is the Shkotsayan Caves. This is pretty much equivalent to our Lewis and Clark Caves. You go into, you have their stalagmites and stalactites. We started up at the top of the hill and worked our way down. It's on a much larger scale. There's huge caverns. There's a river that runs through the bottom of it. Then to get back out, you walk down and you had to go straight up, back up the side of the mountain. You're in a boxcar and it pulled you right back up the side of the mountain.
This was very much, I don't know if people watch the news, but there was a funicular in Lisbon that just crashed. This is exactly the same, but much smaller. The car was much smaller. The route was about the same.
Okay, and then after the tour, we visited Priam. And this is the city located on that small coastal area on the Adriatic Sea. We got to visit a olive garden, and they took us through the whole process of how they process all of their olive oil, and then we got to have a dinner with them. This is the salt flats that they have coming off the Adriatic Sea. They built pools, and the water would come in, it would dry out, and you'd have large amounts of salt that they would sell. And then this is, at the very end, we got to go out on a boat tour on the Adriatic Sea. They fed us a nice shellfish dinner, and we got to swim out in the Adriatic Sea.
So they're still producing salt this way, although it's commercialized now, but they had the original homes that people would have migrated to for 5-6 months over the spring and summer, and they pumped the water in, and then the first pool, enough of the water would evaporate off, and then they'd move the water into the next pool, and eventually at the end you'd end up with sea salt, and that was one of the main economic drivers in the area.
Okay, so after our beach tour, we had some free time. This is Drnice Ravne, and we got to, and you can see how pristine everything is, how clean the water is, all the lakes and rivers. You got to watch some kayakers practicing their skills and techniques. Another picture down here of a lake, and those are actually the Julian Alps. We're right on the edge of Austria at this point. And then one of the things that I enjoyed the most is we got to go up the side of the hill, and the entire side of the hill were all World War II bunkers that we got to go inside of and tour those. And at one point, we were standing right on the border of Austria.
So you could walk through these, and they're in the process of restoring them. It wasn't, you couldn't get, there were certainly people hiking, but it's not like you could have walked the entire distance. Some of them weren't in terribly great shape, but the really nice restored ones looked like this. And there'd be, little rooms where they certainly kept supplies, and it was very interesting. To fight a war in this area, I mean, you've seen the Alps, it just had to have been incredibly treacherous.
Okay, and then our last stop, we ended back up in Ljubljana, and this is also known as the City of Dragons. So I talked about the canal that ran through it. There's several bridges that cross over the water, and on several bridges there's a dragon. Hence this name, the City of the Dragons. Very vibrant, lively city, clean, all kinds of activities to do. And then next two slides are just some of the foods and drinks that we had. On the bottom right-hand side, those are some olive spreads from the olive orchard that we went to. Again, just all fresh food. Some more fresh food. The one down here on the left, that's some of the food that we ate on the boat trip on the Adriatic Sea. The picture down on the bottom right-hand side It's just kind of in a random city. It's in the middle of a park. And that whole wall, you buy little tokens, and they give you, I should have put a picture on there, they give you a little, we should have brought one.
Like a necklace, yeah.
Like a little necklace that has a pouch on it. And you take the tokens up and you can put it in, and it's like, it's a wine dispenser.
Your wine glass goes in the pouch.
Beer dispenser. So you can go up in public and there's a little spout there and you can get your alcohol there. So just a little information on the apitherapy. We showed you some pictures of the inhalation, the bee venom with the stinger, bee wax, usually as a skin protective, pollen. If you watch a bee come back to the hive, they'll have little balls of yellow on their feet. They collect those. They use that for the immune system. Propolis. So, good. So when the bee goes out, it will collect like kind of a sticky sap on its legs, and it will come back to the hive. And this is what the bees use to seal up their hives. It's kind of like a glue. So when you have your Langstroth hives, you go to pull one hive off the other one, it's going to be stuck together. So you have to pry it apart. And all of the seams around the hives, they'll come back and they'll seal all of the seams up with that propolis. And even inside of the hive, you go to pull your sides out and they'll be stuck, so you have to pry everything out. So that's what they use to protect their hives.
So
they use that for bacteria and viruses
yeah.
as a medicinal purpose.
If you ever see, there will be times where like a mouse will get into your hive and the bees will kill it but won't be able to pull it out. You know, obviously it's too big. And so they'll just shellac it over with this propolis. And that's how they keep all of the bacteria and the gross stuff from infecting, you know, everything that's in the hive. What's being passed around is called a queen excluder, so you would put that between two levels, and we'll show you where the queen excluder is in this one. But it makes it, the queen is too big to fit between that. So you want the queen at the very bottom of the hive so that when you take off the top ones, you're just taking honey and the worker bees will figure out how to get back to the hive. But that you haven't taken the queen, because then they'd have to make a new queen, and it's a huge hassle. So that's keeping the queen down below. But the bees don't like to see light anywhere. So anywhere that they can close off, they'll really glue it together. So you get a big crowbar and you gotta pry them apart in a Langstroth hive. Okay, was that everything? Okay, so we're gonna show you the difference between the two hives. I'm gonna put the slideshow back on and stop us if there's something cool in a photo that you want us to talk about. And then we will do some honey, and while we're doing honey, we will answer questions.
Whitney, for the inhalation stuff, did it actually smell like honey?
Yeah, and when the bees get agitated, it smells different than if they're just being nice and calm.
How'd that feel? Did you feel any difference into you?
It was maybe a little warmer, but it didn't feel a particular way. It smelled a particular way. It smelled a little bit like that sheet that we're passing around. Okay, so this would be the outside of the hive, like the pretty painted part. This would be the outside of the hive. And the bees come in these lower sections, so these would be open. If it's really going to town, you can open the upper one so they can get in that spot too. And then we'll turn this around and we'll show you what the inside looks like.
So this is where you do all of your work from.
So now you'd be standing inside the shed, and you can open these doors. And basically the idea here is you've got two boxes stacked on top of each other in one large box. So obviously they're way smaller than what we see when you're driving around. You see the big stack of white ones. In the United States, when you fill up, when the hive is full, you put another box on. If the hive ever gets to the point where it's totally full, it's called honeybound, and then your bees go find someplace else to live. Half of them go off and make a new home. If you're lucky, half of them will stay behind. If they get really bound up, they might all go, and then you gotta start all over.
So one thing you might see when they do that, it's called a swarm. I think we have a picture of it up here, maybe we can find that. You'll see on a tree just a big ball of bees.
And they're not
at that-
dangerous
yeah,
at all at
point,
that
they're
point.
docile because they're not protecting anything. So you can go right up and you can collect those, you can knock them into a box and take it off as your own hive.
Yep. So what you see in the back here, this lower part, this is a feeder. You could fill this full of sugar water if the plants haven't started blooming in your area yet. So that could conceivably get them through winter. Do you want to unscrew and I can talk? Okay. So basically what you're going to see here is that instead of the frames being lifted out like this, and I'm going to pass this one around, this is one that doesn't have a piece of plastic through the middle. This is where the bees would have been raising new bees, which is why it's so dark. If it was a honey frame, it'd be a lot cleaner. But instead of taking each box off and having to go through your hive and look at each one and turn it around, you sit inside your nice little shed and you pull it out like a file cabinet. And it rolls on these little steel rods on the bottom. And it's a definite size. You can't expand this. So you've got to be way more on top of beekeeping in this system because they could fill this a lot quicker. So this is a little bit more hands-off, the Langstroth version. Slovenians like to be in their little bee sheds and spending a lot of time in there. And the reason that all of this works, and you saw that, remember that real old wagon that you saw with all the little beehives on there, is that early beekeepers, and we're talking hundreds of years ago, figured out this concept called bee space. And the idea is that if you give bees very, very little room between something, only the room that they can move, they won't glue it all together. And so these are both based on that concept, and if you come up when we're done, we can show you exactly how far spaced apart they need to be. But it's the reason why you pick a system and commit to it. These pieces don't fit into that hive, and vice versa. And if you're just a little bit off, it makes an absolute mess. You've got to jar everything apart, and
Yeah.
it's
And
hard
keeping
to work.
everything spaced out. Along with that, you have a level, and you have shims, and you need to level off your beehives, or else the bees will come in, you'll get kind of a wonky, if it's off level, your frames, they'll come in and they'll fill in the frames crooked, so everything has to be level. So we have shims and levels once we set up our beehives to keep everything in place.
So if it's clear, we haven't built a shed yet, right? Like that's what needs to happen next. So I'm going to answer questions. We're going to get started on tasting. This is a very complex process whereby you don't double dip. That is the entire concept behind this. So you guys are welcome to eat as much honey as you want. Please don't stick your popsicle sticks back into the jar of honey. Where's that jar of honey at?
Right here.
Okay, perfect. So we've got two of them from Bee Tony in Slovenia. So this first one that we're going to try is the forest honey. So these are hives that would have been up in the mountains more. So one kid is going to walk around with popsicle sticks, take a popsicle stick. The other kid is going to very actively monitor that you don't go in twice. And then we're going to go back and we'll pick up the dirty popsicle sticks and we'll start all over again with flower honey. And in the meantime, we'll answer questions. So I saw you had a hand up and you just took a drink. Did you have a question for us?
Yeah, I was wondering, so when you open up the back side of that, they'll come into the shed though?
Yep, they do come in a little bit. So you would use a smoker. The smoke calms the bees down. Generally the shed is fairly dark inside, and you leave one part of your window with some light and you leave the top part of the window open. So generally speaking, they're like double hung windows and you leave that gap. The bees see the light and they head that direction and exit the shed. And you certainly wouldn't have all those doors open at once. What happened? Nope, we're restarting the computer.
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
That's the garbage roll. We'll send the kids around with the garbage roll in a second. So, you don't end up with a ton of bees inside the shed, and these people are really pretty adept at what they do. Will our bee shed have a ton of bees in it the first time? Yes, yes it will.
Yeah, the more you work with them, the more used they get to you, and they're docile.
All right, we've got 7% of our update happening here. More honey. No, you're fine.
Did the bees get to know you?
They do.
Yeah.
The question was, do the bees get to know you?
They do. The more you work with them, yep, they become docile and you can go up and usually you have a big bee suit on when you work with them. Probably the last couple years, our last set of beehives, I could go up and work with them without any equipment on. They're docile.
They really get to know people. Doug worked them more than I did, and so they would be much calmer with him than they would with me. Sarah?
So you had mentioned like if they're in a swarm, or whatever it's called, that you can safely scoop them.
Safely scoop them.
Would one do that?
If you have someplace to put them, totally. If you ever see that out in your yard, certainly there's people in town that would come rescue those bees in a heartbeat. Because the situation is there's generally two ways people get their bees in Great Falls if they're first starting out. You go someplace and buy a package, which is this screened-in box that has 3 pounds of worker bees and an unrelated queen in a little cage, and you introduce them into this box. Or you could buy a nuke, which is short for nucleus, and it's usually 3 to 5 of these frames fully drawn out, and you put them right into your hive. Those obviously both cost money, and I don't know what they're charging these days, but it's hundreds of dollars to start each one of these hives. So if you found one hanging in a tree, people would be tripping over themselves to get to you first to take that swarm. But we did it once. We put a 5-gallon bucket underneath it and we just knocked the tree branch. They all fell in, and then we turned around and walked over to our hive and dumped them in. They clearly had come right out, and we were like, no, we want to keep you. Let's go back.
And at that point, they're docile because they're not defending anything. They're not protecting their honey or their queen.
You want to be the honey person this time? You can be the honey person. Okay, did everybody give us their dirty, gross popsicle sticks? There's one more. Watch that guy.
He took two.
So when you guys finished, where you left your hive, did you give it to somebody? Did somebody inherit your hive? Or?
No,
Our last hive died in the winter. So that's one of the better options with this is they're warm on the inside. It's tricky. You see most beekeepers send their bees to California or somewhere else during the winter. So it got
commercial
kinda,
beekeepers.
Commercial bee, yeah. So it got kind of tricky trying to keep them alive. I built some insulated boxes that went around them, but it just depends on what kind of a winter it is. I think it was a winter where we had like 20 below weather for kind of a stretch, and they just didn't make it the last time.
And there's a lot of diseases out there too that are affecting bees right now, and so it's a tenuous. It's a hobby where you have to expect some loss. Yep.
Was that first honey the one that you said was up in the mountains?
Yeah, the first one was the forest honey, and then this one's a flower honey. So can you guys taste a difference? No, we haven't. Those of you that have gotten it lighter, does it taste any more floral?
I think so.
I think it does.
You definitely, in Montana, you can really tell the difference between alfalfa honey. I think canola is the one that gets really crystally and can be really hard to get out of the
So this is a darker honey. We have some that are much lighter than this, and we have some that are even darker than this. Just depends on where the bees go. They have about a 3-mile radius, so they can leave the hive and make it 3 miles and then make it back to the hive. You know where they're going.
Okay, we're 100% there. Put the photos back up.
Is there a huge variation in when the color is different?
There is, yeah.
Okay.
You can taste it.
And I feel like you can tell the difference between forest fire years, like not just what we've had in this last little bit, but if we have a really bad, just straight total smoke, I feel like you can tell if you're honey.
So it's almost smoky.
Sarah, I like the test, like I think we're gonna have to walk back to this. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Are the countries that surround Slovenia, are they as avid with beekeeping, or is it really specific to?
So the question is how avid is Slovenia compared to other countries?
Slovenia is the most well-known and, yeah, most focused. The other ones do have beekeeping, but Slovenia is the top of the chain. What is that?
We know why.
It's just, yeah,
Sarah,
there was no,
What was
we
your
didn't
browser?
learn
Was it
anything
Chrome
about
or
that, but,
Firefox?
that Anton, that we visited, so World Bee Day is named after him. So he was the top of the top, yeah.
The other one.
Doug, does that, the one from Slovenia, can't have two queens in one of those, or is that a one queen?
You would just have one,
Because I noticed that 2 levels, but just one.
yeah, you just have one queen in this one.
And then my other question is, what drove your interest in apiaries? What got you interested in the first place?
Oh, yeah.
We didn't really know about apiaries before we went on the Slovenian tour. We randomly took, Great Falls was, I don't know if it's through college technology, we take a lot of classes, and they offered a bee class probably 10 years ago. And that's how we just decided that,
To try.
yeah, just to try beekeeping. The girls started out, we had little bee suits for them. But yeah, that's how we got into it. So it was just kind of a random class that we took and decided that we wanted to do it. But the apiary, this was our first experience with that.
Santa Claus doesn't bring regular presents at our house, and so Santa Claus brought beehives and bee suits one year. That's how it happened. Okay, have we tried the Great Falls honey yet?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, let's do it.
Still a good time.
So you can see sort of the levels that people took in terms of making this into a business. This one was really, really commercialized. You could come and stay at this place. They had massage therapists on hand. You could eat, you could stay overnight. The saunas were at this one. Some of these places have really figured it out.
We will probably see a swarm
That was a big bite.
Is it at this?
in these pictures.
A lot thing, easy to do. Wow.
This is the local honey, right?
Yep, this is Great Falls.
Great
So
Falls.
there's a swarm. Do you see the, in the back?
Wow.
So they're all dangling there, and if they had enough time, they ate as much honey as they could before they left the hive to take to wherever they're gonna go. They may know where they're headed, they may just have to figure it out, but somewhere in that gigantic ball is the queen. And there are people that will reach right into the middle of that and find her and put her into some sort of like screen type container, and if you have her, all of those workers will follow. And so if you ever see instances, I saw one time on in the news that the queen had gotten into somebody's tail light on their car, and those bees glommed onto that car and wouldn't leave. So if you can get the queen out of there, the rest of those guys will follow right into, if you put her right inside there, they would all march happily into that box.
So you just go up to that limb, you'd put a box underneath. And it looks like there's already some on the ground. You just put a box underneath it and you can tap the limb and they just all fall right into the box.
That
Or
sounds
take
like
it
a
over
no.
to your hive.
Never fallen into your hive. The cream of falling
Yeah,
in
the
boxes.
queen, yeah, I wouldn't know how to find the
You
queen.
need to make sure that the queen goes with it.
How much bigger is she than the work bees?
Pretty significant, like twice the size. How much bigger is the queen than the other ones? Twice the size.
That screen.
You gotta see the difference between them. If you buy your bees commercially, they mark them, and so they'll have a dot on their back, and somebody decides what color each year is gonna be. I don't know who christens 2025 red. I don't know what color this year was.
And that's a major part of checking your beehives. You'll go through and make sure that the queen is still alive in your hive. So you'll need to go through and look at find the bee that has the dot painted on it.
So if you guys haven't gotten food, you should do that, because obviously there was a lot of charcuterie photos in there that might make you hungry.
So in Slovenia, is honey used pretty traditionally and commonly for treating arthritis and the massages? And
I think some of that has got, is sort of newer. The question was how much do they use apitherapy in Slovenia? I think it's one of those things that, I think that forever they've known that it's really good over like an open wound. You can put honey on it and bacteria won't get in. You know, making it into other products, they certainly have been doing forever. When we went to that monastery, there was every salt cell under the sun, you know, in these little containers that you could buy, and there'd be, you know, arnica in with beeswax in with, you know, whatever they were selling. And so I think that part of things has been used forever. You know, the billboard on the side of the highway, stop and come do this, I think that's a relatively new part of things in Slovenia.
So are there way different plants there and flowers than we have here? I see
I don't
there's
know about the
daisies and
difference.
lavender and that, but
Everything is overgrown and green, so there's an abundance of plants for the bees to go to.
I would say climate-wise, it's not as harsh as Great Falls. Like if I had to guess, it was the areas we were in were probably like a zone 6, zone 7. I don't think USDA zones translate exactly, but here you can see, you know, that's one hive just all laid out side by side, so you could see exactly what was going on behind the plexiglass. But all kinds of people have these little spots on the side of the road, and you get to stop and see what they're all up to. So here's, I mean, this is a hive that has bees in it, and you can kind of see a couple of them flying around, but for the most part, they really stick to staying inside their home.
There's a bed next to that hive, and this is one of the places where you could sleep next to the bees and breathe in the.
What's smoke do? Holds them down?
The smoke calms them down and disorients them, and if they think that their home's on fire, generally a bee's response would be to eat as much honey as they can and then get out. And so they get really heavy and slow. So you're tricking them into thinking the only thing they need to do is take care of themselves and not defend what's in the hive. And you can see there she doesn't have any frames in the upper one yet. She's only giving them frames as they build out the frames that are already in there.
And those are just frames, like the bees build everything in the
As
interior.
long as it's level,
Start. Yep.
the bees will fill all of that in and they'll be able to enter from both sides.
So these
How long does it take to do that?
these were open frames just like that one.
And they'll decide which ones, if you leave them to their own devices, they'll decide which ones to make into honey and which ones to lay eggs in. The comb for drones, the male bees that reproduce, are bigger cells than the workers. The size determines what the bee, how the bee ends up in the end. So they know how to do all of that. So you can sit right in front. I mean, those bees are flying in and out of all of those hives, and that's one of the best parts of beekeeping, is just having a cold beverage and sitting in front of your hive.
Was any of the alcohol tied into the honey, or was it just?
So the alcohol that they make from the honey, mead is like water and honey and yeast, and it'll ferment. You know, you put it in a bottle and you cork it, and after a certain, this is pollen in a trap here. After a certain amount of time, the alcohol will eat all of the sugar, and you'll be left with sometimes something mildly bubbly. They also made hard alcohol, so I think that it was, you know, the process of like soaking fruit and honey in something strong like vodka or one of those, and then you drink small shots of that. We've made mead before, and we thought about bringing that tonight, but I'm sure that's against the rules, number one, and number two, it could peel paint. So this is how you'd see honey at the breakfast table a lot of the times. Just a frame of it, and some people really don't mind just chewing it up, and there's a lot of wax in it.
Any process then?
Yeah, you can just scoop it up and spread it on your bread. They also make a lot of salami in Slovenia. So all of these were alcohols and fruit juices, and there's a lot of charcuterie. It's a good
Do
trip.
they have specific pairings of drinks with specific types of,
We had some pairings, but they didn't really explain it that way, that that's what they're doing.
Is the queen's lifespan considerably longer than the bees?
A couple years. Once she's mated, she never leaves the hive. So there's not a lot of danger to the queen. Whereas a worker bee's going out every day and, using their wings and, might lose a leg or something like that along the way. So yeah, the queens last a lot longer. So this is where the monks were at. They just had a beautiful garden.
So are bees in Montana, you mentioned it gets, like, when it gets really cold, they might freeze or what do our, wild, bees, what do they do in the winter?
So in the winter, they all form a little ball. Okay, so first of all, they know that going into winter, they need a smaller colony. So that she doesn't lay as many eggs, they don't produce baby bees going into the winter. And so they get into a tight little ball, and then they move through that whole hive as a unit, eating all of the honey that they've stored. So you've got to leave them honey, you've got to leave them enough that they'll be able to make it through the winter, because that's what they're going to eat. And as long as there's enough there and they can stick to that ball, some of them are doing the work of beating their wings to keep the heat up. Some of them are eating. Some of them are taking care of the queen. And then they know once spring rolls around, it's time for her to go back down and start laying eggs again. Also, I know we're being recorded. We are novice beekeepers. If I've gotten any of this wrong, Amy's here to correct me. Amy is the whole reason behind this trip.
So why is the Montana honey more coarse than?
Oh, why is it all crystally? Okay, so honey is fructose and glucose, two sugars in suspension. Fructose tends to stay very liquidy, and glucose can crystallize. And if there's things in your honey, this goes through a strainer at our house, but it's not like a commercial process. It would go through a bunch of different steps getting everything straightened out. So at some point you're gonna find a bee leg or a bee wing or some random piece of bee in there, and you're gonna call it protein, and you're gonna eat it anyways.
I strained it several times.
But those things can make the crystals start to form around that honey. It doesn't mean that it's any less quality. It might be the temperature that it's stored at. You can heat it back up, it'll turn back into honey. It's just sometimes, and certain honeys from certain plants crystallize easier than others, so.
Do they have the mite issues, the varroa mites that we do? So how do they deal with it?
They're treating them. So varroa mites are these little mites that stick on the back of your bee, and they suck the life out of them and eventually kill your colony. And so you can use a fogger to get rid of them. I was really enamored with a snail. I'm sorry, you're going to treat the 10 pictures of it. There's a cat coming up too. So yeah, they treat them there as well. One of the things about tending bees in a hive this size is I think, know that something bad is happening way sooner than, conceivably, we could go all summer and check these 3 times maybe, would you say, before? Yeah. You can really let bees do their own thing. You couldn't do that in this hive. They'd end up filling the whole thing and swarming, and it would be a mess. You could pet these deer at this place. They sold you, was it peanuts? They sold you a little cone of food. And those deer knew. There's the cone. Pika is the word for deer, I think, if I remember correctly. Anything else? Any other questions? You guys want to eat more honey? Oh, there's a buck. Yeah, they were right up on you. So this place was fenced in, and it had, cattle panels when you drove in, and it was on, 15, 20 acres maybe?
Probably 20.
And it was all straight uphill.
So where are you going on your next trip?
Where are we going on our next trip?
Where did we just go on our last trip?
Traveling is a bit of a thing for us. We leave next Saturday for Taipei.
For?
So this is a mulberry tree. They're also really known for their ham. This would be kind of like Prosciutto?
Yep.
Again, I'm on camera, please don't, in the comment section, don't tell me how badly I did at this. Oh, there's my passport. That one out. That was probably if we get hijacked somewhere along the way.
Was the language barrier a problem?
No, everybody spoke English that we came across. We had, so Suzanne could get around just fine. She had obviously lived there for a long time. And then our driver, who I'm blanking on his name, spoke perfect English and had done this tour umpteen times. And so he could answer all of our questions. He was terrific. But no problems that I can remember. Do you with any language stuff? So there's the funicular.
Mama, you had purple hair when you were there?
I did. I had purple hair for a hot moment, and the purple was really popular among the like 70 and older crowd in Europe, and so I fit right in. I looked a little older than I was. It's a beautiful place. If you get the chance to visit Slovenia, I would highly, highly recommend it. Obviously, you don't need to do 12 straight days of bees. There's so much more to see in the country, and I thought it was very clean and really safe, and that's my sister, and just a really, really nice place to visit. Yes?
Can you clarify, I think I misheard, so was all the additional travel y'all's independent travel, or was it part of the package?
Everything you saw in the pictures was part of the package. Logistics-wise, I looked at the website. It's $4,200 per person. If you go with somebody, it's $4,500 to have a single room the entire time you're there. Everything that you guys saw in the photos was all included. I think we had like maybe 1 or 2 lunches that we needed to pay for.
Yeah, we had some free time, but everything else was included.
We flew into Venice. That was on our own. They would pick you up in Ljubljana. That's where they picked my sister up. So we had
Those are the salt flats.
Yeah, we had 3 or 4 days, I think, in Venice beforehand, and then the van was really reasonable. Like I want to say maybe $50 to get from Venice to Ljubljana. We rode bikes down here. It was really pretty. So this is the original style housing of the people that were the salt workers back in the day. You know, you'd bring your whole family and live in one of these houses for several months over the summer. Any other questions? It is time, yeah.
When you guys start your bee colonies here, did you like get them local or did you outsource them or?
We've done both. Where do we get our bees from is the question. We have done the packages, and those, there's a place over in like Ronan, is that right? That they will truck them over here. North 40 has started selling them, so you have to pre-order them. I don't think they keep them on the shelves at North 40. They come with a can of, like a soup can full of sugar water, so you gotta get them out of their box and into a hive relatively quickly, and then you gotta feed them for a little bit.
You can buy all your equipment at North 40. They sell everything there.
And then you can buy nukes, the one where the frames are already all drawn out. You know, you get 3 or 5 of them, and there's a guy out in Sun Prairie that sells them. His name's Rod Smith, and you got to be on the list. Like if you want him, I bet he takes orders in November, December. It became a really popular hobby, and you kind of had to be on top of it. But you know, if you are already going, it's really easy to split off some of your existing bees if you do it at the right time of the year and make more hives. Like if you can keep them going, and we always had more than one hive, so if you lost one, you could split the survivor next spring. The olive trees were kind of interesting. These are mulberries. The people that had the olive orchards, the whole group, this was his area where he fed us lunch, they would get together and press their olive oil all at the same time, and then like the very last run of the season, they would do a version where they threw in either lemons or oranges, and it was a group situation, and so whoever participated got their share of this lemon olive oil, and it was delicious. But it was, from the time he picked him to the time he had it in the bottle, it was same day. Any other questions?
How much land do you need to keep bees?
You can keep them in your backyard in Great Falls. You can. How much land do you need for bees? They will find what they need. You might want to tell your neighbors that they exist. But yeah, you could. We've seen them on rooftops in downtown big cities. You know.
Do they bother, like, have your neighbors ever reported them bothering them or anything?
Have the neighbors ever been bugged by bees? We have one neighbor that says that her tomatoes grow better when the bees are around. You'd never know if they were my bees or if they were the commercial bees.
Can you have too many hives in a certain area and?
Yeah, can you have too many hives? Yeah, you can.
If
Which
you
is
don't have
why
enough plantation.
you see the commercial ones all spread around. And I think those commercial people, they register with the state, and I think the state has some limit on what you can do. For hobby people, they really stay out of your business, though. Anything else? Susie would probably like us to pack up, but this is... No? Good. Are we good? Okay, we'll stay as long as you guys want and answer any more questions. But otherwise, feel free to try more honey. I really thought that we would eat way more than the half an inch you guys ate, and I'm sure there's more popsicles. They mowed the grass with these sheep in between the olive trees, and they had really particular wool. I don't remember what kind of sheep those were. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. I'm sure Sarah would like to tell you what the next one is.
All right, well, thank you so much, Whitney and Doug. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here. Thank you all for coming out. It's so nice to have you. We don't close until 8 o'clock, so if you guys wanted to try more honey, ask more questions up here, please feel free to do that, as long as, you know, you're out the door by 8. Just a couple things before you guys leave. We do have an author talk coming up on Tuesday with Mike Hogan, and it's Between Predator and Prey, 42 Years as a Government Hunter. So that one's going to be pretty great. Mike is going to talk about cattle mutilations, crazy sheep herders, trap-wise grizzly bears, and other wildlife experiences. That's what his book says. So that'll be a fun one. It'll be right here in the Cordingley Room on Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. So come on down for that. We won't have charcuterie, but maybe I'll provide water. We'll see how I feel. And then I would not be a very good partner in this community if I didn't also let you all know that our dear author here, Amy, is going to be doing a talk down at the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center, same Tuesday, so, you know, but at a different time. There's time to get to both. That one is Ink and Explorations, Lessons from Lewis and Clark's Notebooks, and that is going to be 7 p.m. at the Interpretive Center. So you can do 5:30 here, and then 7 o'clock over there, and you can get best of both worlds. The next Armchair Traveler is going to be next month, first Thursday of the month, again at 6:30 down here, and we are going to be traveling to Albania with Erica Latre. So I hope you guys are here for that as well. All right? Thank you all so much, and have a great evening.